Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into a summer evening in Song, China, where the air feels like steeped tea, and the crickets do an extremely diligent job of keeping time. I'm your whispery tour guide, here to help you tiptoe into a lamplit study without knocking over anything priceless. Tiny, gentle warning, because it's tradition and also good sense. You probably wouldn't survive this. Not because anyone is dramatic, more because 12th century life is a maze of exams, taxes, and mosquitoes who have neither mercy nor bedtime. Don't worry, I'm here to keep you out of complicated poetry, duels, and any bureaucratic paperwork. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. South City, countryside, so I can imagine the breeze that's traveling between us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in a scholar's study, as if you've always belonged there. The lamp is small and steady, a patient glow pooling on a low table, worn smooth by elbow and thought. The window lattice is open to a square of night, and the courtyard's bamboo moves like a slow metronome. On the table, an inkstone with a puddle, the color of moonshadow, a brush rest shaped like a tiny mountain, a porcelain water dropper that pretends it's a plump fish. You breathe in pine, soot, and paper, the faint mineral temps of clay baked into a promise. Your hand drifts to a porcelain pillow, a headrest more sculpture than cushion. It's cooler than the air, the way a pale river stone is cool at dusk. You don't need to test it yet. We'll save the full hello for a little later, but you can feel the idea of it. Summer sleeping that doesn't cling. The glaze gathers the lamp's soft edge and returns it like quiet laughter. Someone painted a trailing lotus on the side, the leaves spacious and tidy, because even the lotus needs a little room to breathe. Outside, the city keeps an unhurried heartbeat. Somewhere across the lanes, a vendor folds up a bamboo mat. Somewhere else, a storyteller seals his box of woodblock prints. The Song are great lovers of paper and ink, and that's not just rumor. Woodblock printing is everywhere, and the crisp weave of characters has made books more plentiful than ever. You can almost hear the pages turning in the next courtyard, and if you listen harder, you might sense the distant hush of Kaifeng's night market's lanterns, strung like constellations. Late snacks, a murmur of bargaining that never quite becomes loud. That's a widely accepted truth tucked into this calm. The Song night blooms with city life. Regulated but lively. Market stalls lit well past sunset. The scholar who lives here isn't home yet. Or perhaps he's fallen asleep just out of view, legs crossed on a woven mat, head carefully supported by a pillow, like the one beneath your fingers. Ceramic pillows are a real thing in this room, and in this century common enough to be domestic. Refined enough to be admired, sturdy enough to outlast your entire neighborhood. Quirk for your pocket. Some of these porcelain pillows carry inscriptions, like cool sleep and clear thoughts. A bedtime pep talk, baked right into the glaze. It's the gentlest advertisement, the kind you don't mind hearing, because it promises exactly what the night already seems to provide. A moth visits the lamp and decides not to stay. Very polite. Your breath falls into the rhythm of the crickets. The floorboards answer under your feet with the softest conversational creak, as if they're agreeing to hold your weight without telling anyone else. I make a small, ceremonial vow not to let you attempt calligraphy. There are brushes within reach, and your curiosity is excellent. But you and I both know that if you blot ink on the scholar's latest poem, we will have invented the earliest known apology note. Better to sit, to listen, to feel the room earn your confidence. Porcelain, here, is both everyday and miraculous. Dingware Cizhou stoneware, the faint blue Qingbai that seems to keep a piece of morning sky. All of it lives in houses like this, though you see only a quiet fraction tonight. You rest your forearm on the table and feel the season's warmth. The pillow glints faintly, and in that glow is something soothing, the sense that craftsmanship can be an act of kindness. People make objects to take care of each other. A ceramic headrest that stays cool through humid hours is as tender as a lullaby. Beyond the city, roads unwind toward kilns and hills and rivers that carry clay. Caravans will load their bells, boats will learn the geometry of tides, and pieces like this will travel farther than their makers. You don't have to decide anything now. Your job in this room is to exist gently, a very advanced skill. Historians still wonder if these pillows were used every night by many households, or if the most ornate examples were made mainly to accompany the dead into tombs, bearing wishes for permanent rest. Some pieces show real wear, the kind you can only earn through years of summer sleep. Others look as if fingers rarely touched them, their beauty preserved for ceremony or eternity. The question lingers like the lamp's edge kind, not urgent. Tonight, you're allowed to live comfortably in the maybe. You test how the night moves through the window lattice. A small current, enough to float a curl of paper ash. If you pressed your ear to the pillow, you might imagine hearing the clay's long memory riverbed. 2 hands, hands to mold, mold to heat, and back again. We'll walk those steps soon. For now, the story lies in the hush of this study. A paper screen quivers slightly as someone in another room turns over in sleep. A fan leaf hanging on the wall shows a tiny boat with a paper white sail, someone's idea of longing preserved on silk. The humor of the moment is light and domestic. On the bookshelf, a little bronze cicada clip guards a scroll as if it were a leaf. Even the decor takes its job very seriously, which may be why you feel welcome. There's an inkstone poem here. Every scholar has one, something encouraging about persistence. It says roughly, keep grinding, and the water will turn black and ready. You smile because the pillow's message is the same in reverse. Stop grinding, and your thoughts will turn clear. It's a balanced household. If you happen to sneeze, I'll blame the bamboo, and not your modern dust allergy. That's what guides are for. I should offer you one more hard fact to lean on, like a cool sill for your elbows. This era sees extraordinary porcelain skill, with kilns across the north and south perfecting glazes. That would make later collectors sigh in museums and whisper awkwardly to security guards. That's the broad truth, holding up the roof. Beneath it, a smaller truth peers out. Many porcelain pillows prefer friendly imagery: lotus for purity, children at play for happiness and lineage. Sometimes a watchful tiger to keep nighttime worries at the door. The one in front of you seems to favor quiet lily pads and a single bud, as if sleep itself were an unopened flower. A bell, far away, gives one low note, then another. Maybe it's a water carrier packing up. Maybe it's someone counting off the curfew hours with a handheld clapper, reminding the streets to yawn and go home. You settle your palm on the pillow for a longer moment and feel the way it refuses to hoard warmth. That is its trick. It declines your heat politely, then returns a calm that your skin recognizes as kindness. We'll leave the lamp burning low and step a little closer to the clay's story, but we're in no rush. The night is wide enough. If you listen carefully, you can hear kilns breathing out beyond the city, like distant sleeping animals. And you can hear your own breath decide to join them, slow, even uncomplicated. The study holds your quiet better than any promise, and the pillow waits, patient as a river stone, for you to learn how cool dreams are made. Your fingertips skate along the porcelain, and the night answers with a cool shiver, like finding the quiet side of the moon and realizing it's been saving a place for you. The glaze is smooth, but not slippery. A hush you can touch. Heat tries its best to linger on your skin, and the pillow politely declines, redistributing the warmth until the surface returns to riverstone calm. You tilt it a little, and the lamplight moves across it in a slow tide. The cool travels farther than your hand. It lifts into your shoulders, then drifts into your breath. You didn't know a rectangle could have bedside manners. On one side, a lotus wanders across the surface, each petal opening with careful, unhurried confidence. The line isn't shouted. It's brushed in slip liquid. Clayso, the design sits under the glaze, safe as a secret. You follow it with a fingertip, feeling the faintest ridge where the brush once paused. Farther along, there's a scene of playful children, the 100 children motif that families adore. For its wishful thinking about happy descendants and lively households, 2 tiny boys chase a fluttering ribbon. One appears to be winning the race, simply because he forgot he was racing. The mood is so cheerful that your own face softens. This pillow does not take sleep too seriously. It keeps you company. You test the edge with the side of your cheek. A neat surprise. The coolness returns, even after a moment of contact. The ceramic is hollow, and somewhere at the back there's a small breathing hole venting for the firing, and now, a passage where the room's air can drift in and out. Press your ear close, and the hollow makes a shell-like promise. You hear a tiny echo of the night you're already in, amplified by a thumb's width of space. It's like a seashell that only collects the silence. You bring it. Nothing dramatic, just a room's soft murmurs, doing laps. A widely known truth leans against the table, agreeable as a well-behaved cat in the Song era. Kilns perfected remarkable wares, Jingdezhen's Qingbai glazes that hover between blue and white like dawn mist. Dingware, with its ivory glow, and northern Cizhou pieces where black iron brushwork dances atop a white slip. Your pillow borrows tricks from this world. The lotus and children likely come from a hand comfortable with the Cizhou habit of storytelling and brushstrokes. The design breathes beneath a clear, glassy skin, and the glaze pools minutely in any carved line, making shadows that look like deeper ink. You balance the pillow in both hands and weigh it surprisingly light for its size, because that hollow interior does half the work. The base is flat and sturdy, the top gently arched in a way that coaxes your neck to float instead of sag. It's not a cloud, but it is a very good argument for clouds. If you were expecting plush softness, this is a polite course correction, the pillow says. Let me keep you cool. You bring the cushion, meaning your muscles' willingness to loosen and the calm of your breath. Together, you meet in the middle. This is an excellent collaboration and requires no paperwork. There's a small painted border of peonies on the short side, almost an afterthought. And under the glaze, you find a tiny inscription for characters promising clear dreams and good thinking. The brush wobbles slightly on the final stroke, the human touch preserved like a smile. A lesser-known detail lives here too. Some ceramic pillows had sent in their story. Owners tucked a sprig of mint or a scented paper near the vent hole, letting fragrance drift through the hollow. Others chose nothing, preferring the neutral calm of night air. Yours offers only the room's clean coolness and a whisper of clay after rain. When you rest your cheek again, the curve supports the spot where neck meets skull, a hinge you forgot had preferences. You discover that comfort can be a matter of angle, not fluff. The pillow teaches you to set your head like a star on a sextant, steady, aligned, ready to measure the night in breaths. The glaze feels faintly dewy, though of course it's not. It's simply better at not hoarding heat. That cooling impression, the science quietly says, comes from the way ceramic drinks in warmth and spreads it quickly, so no one place becomes a furnace. You don't need the mechanics. You can feel the result. Your skin stops negotiating with the air. The children on the side keep playing. One holds a little drum. You imagine the softest tap-tap, perfectly reasonable for bedtime, like a heartbeat that found percussion. You catch yourself grinning and look away with the guilty joy of someone enjoying a very small joke. The lotus, meanwhile, minds its own business, symmetrical, without bragging about it. You suspect the painter had a calm afternoon and a forgiving supervisor. It helps your own mind unclench. The way tidy lines help a desk feel ready. You listen harder. The vent hole offers its tiny echo again, this time blending with the crickets through the open lattice. The room smells of paper and oak gall and a trace of tea. If you stayed here all summer, you would learn the pillow's daily weather. Cool at dusk, still cool at midnight, cool again at dawn. A reliable forecast you wish your own pillow could print on its label. Your neck considers writing a thank you note. It settles for not complaining. Historians still wonder about small habits. Did sleepers lay a thin cloth over the glaze every night? Or was the bare surface the intended contact? Museum pieces sometimes show where that suggests years of direct use. Others look ceremonial, almost pristine, as if they were destined for burial or display. The debate drifts along like a polite argument between neighbors who share a wall and a fondness for quiet. You don't have to choose. Tonight, you're lucky enough to try the bare surface, and it agrees with you. A tiny chip near the base has been repaired with care. Someone smoothed it and burnished the patch until it matched a quiet rescue. The fix is nearly invisible unless you're looking for it. You like knowing that an object can be both beautiful and mended. It takes the pressure off being perfect at bedtime, which, to be honest, is a difficult hour to audition for perfection anyway. Elsewhere, pillows like this don't always keep to rectangles. Some become tigers with friendly faces, guardians of dreams who look more amused than fierce. Others mimic bamboo nodes, or even reclining figures, as if a small sculpture volunteered to support a human head. The variety says something about the people who made and used them. Practical, affectionate toward symbols, fond of a bit of humor at the threshold of sleep. You can imagine the workshop laughter when someone proposed the first cat-shaped headrest, and everyone realized it would actually work. You slide your hand to the underside and feel the ring foot, a stable base circle that keeps the pillow grounded on the mat. The clay there is unglazed, quiet, matte, honest. The contrast between that softness and the sleek top is satisfying, like a book with a linen cover and glossy pages within. Whoever trimmed this base knew when to stop, when to leave enough material for strength, when to smooth the last whisper of a turning tool. You can feel the pause of their hand, the way muscle memory becomes heritage. A thought floats across the room and rests in your lap. Objects like this travel, not just across cities, but across centuries. Someone carried this pillow home on a bamboo pole, wrapped in straw or padded in cloth, then placed it by a mat where a breeze knew to visit. Later, perhaps, it sat in a lacquered chest during the winter, waiting for summer's first warm evening. That patient rhythm feels good in your bones. You and the pillow agree that patience is a cooling art. When you finally lay your head there longer, the world organizes itself around the sensation. Lamp steady, cricket steady, breath steady. It's like a tiny, domestic observatory, and your thoughts are the stars. The children at play recede into the edge of your vision. The lotus drifts somewhere just below your ear. Someone down the lane yawns, a sound that arrives as a suggestion rather than a command. You are not in a hurry to sleep, which is the best possible way to get there. For tonight's final trivia, before we drift toward kilns and rivers, the 100 children motif appears again and again in Chinese art. Not exactly a literal 100, but a crowd of merriment, symbolizing prosperity and generational luck. That's the big, established fact. The quirky grace note is that your pillow lets the children keep playing while you do not. They seem delighted to be on night watch. You are grateful to delegate. It's rare to find such reliable employees who accept payment in moonlight. The glaze is cool. The night is cooler. Your mind is coolest of all, which is a very welcome reversal of daytime arrangements. The pillow keeps its promise without saying a word, and the room gives you permission to take the next long, easy breath, as if it belonged to you already. The study's hush follows you through the gate and into the lane, where bamboo leans in like the city's gentlest crowd control, guiding you toward the hills. You carry the memory of cool porcelain on your cheek, as if it were a small, portable breeze. The path has a damp stone scent. Somewhere a nightbird tries 3 notes, and decides that's enough music for one evening. We walk past doorways, breathing tea steam, past bundled straw, ready for packing fragile goods, and toward the low, steady glow that means kilns are awake. A breeze pulls smoke through the bamboo, and the leaves sound like polite applause for fire doing its job. Asterisk, the slope rises, and with it a soft exhale of heat. A kind of dragon's breath without the dragon. The kill before you is long and brick-lined. A creature laid along the hillside, an old idea that never stopped working. Chamber meets chamber in a staircase of warmth, stoked from below, each segment feeding the next in a patient relay. It's called a dragon-kiln for a reason. It coils up the hill and turns fuel into light and light into pottery, which is the closest thing to alchemy the neighborhood allows. You keep a respectful distance. Partly for history and partly for your eyebrows. Asterisk. Potters move around the kiln with the choreography of people who know where their feet go even in the dark. Someone carries pine wood. Someone else walks with a shallow basket of wadding balls, fingers dusted white. The pine smells faintly sweet, resinous as a memory, and the flames accept it like a well-timed joke. Brief, bright, then calm again. A master squints into a peephole, engages the color straw yellow shifting toward clear. An old language of heat you can only learn by looking for years. Your role is to admire and avoid adding any modern help. No, you cannot blow on it like birthday candles. Asterisk, a familiar truth stands steady beside the kill's arch. Not so far in geography, and very close in reputation, will be called the porcelain capital for centuries, with Qingbai glazes that hover like dawn mist. The very word kiln comes from a hill near their Jailing, whose clay lends whiteness and strength. That's the big, agreed-upon backdrop. Here on the slope, the fact takes on a small, human shape, a worker's shoulder, the creak of a carrying pole. The rhythm of feet that have learned exactly how to approach heat and not hurry it. Asterisk. Water goes about its business in the yard beyond. A channel turns a wheel, and the wheel lifts and drops wooden hammers into clay with a bass heartbeat. Each thump breaks, lumps and chases out stubborn pockets of air, a song of preparation that keeps time for the firing. The slurry surface shivers with each impact, then settles again, thick and moonlit. You dip your fingers and feel coolness that argues with the kill's warm breath. 2 elements that agree to meet halfway inside the finished piece. Asterisk A. Lesser-known ritual waits at the kiln mouth. A small paper charm tucked into a crack, a whispered greeting to the kill god, and a tiny splash wine or tea offered toward the floor, where the first fire will take. The gesture is quick and practical, as much habit as hope. Another quirk. Someone holds a thin stick of incense and watches the smoke draw sideways into the draft. A tidy way to see whether the kiln breathes evenly. If the smoke leans too hard, baffles are adjusted. If it floats straight up, there's a quiet nod that feels like a smile. Asterisk, the firebox door opens and closes with a low, considerate growl. A stoker pushes pine in with a long tool that looks like a spear repurposed for friendship. You feel the heat wrap your shins and then loosen again as the door swings shut. Inside, shelves wait like ladders for pottery that will become more itself by losing water and gaining glass. You catch a glimpse of clay tucked in protective containers, saggars. The flying ash won't write its own autobiography on every surface. We'll peek deeper another time. Tonight, the promise is enough. Asterisk, all along the kill's spine, small stoke holes are open like eyes. A potter leans to one and listens not to sound, but to a feeling of draw against the cheek, the way you might test a draft at a window. He steps back and nods, and another worker answers with a measured scoop of fuel. The kiln really does have moods, and the crew speaks to them softly. The joke among them is that the kiln is the only one allowed to be hot. You file that away, because it's nice when workplaces come with tiny, shared weather. Asterisk if you ask which hill is which. Feet will point in two directions at once, and the night will oblige by letting you visit both. North, the Cizhou tradition likes to paint stories black brush on white slip. A cheerful conversation under a clear glaze. South, Jingdezhen chases a blue-white clarity that looks like porcelain pretending to be cloud. You move between them the way dreamwalkers do. The bamboo never quite ending, the smoke always in the same gentle key. Styles travel, and people do too, with family recipes for clay bodies and glaze. Ratios kept like heirloom soup secrets. Asterisk historians still wonder how fast these ideas sprinted or meandered between. Did painters follow the work, carrying their wrists, wisdom from Cizhou, northward and south again? Or did styles spread by trade finished pots moving first, techniques catching up later, like travelers on slower horses? The debate sits beside us like an amiable third companion, willing to walk all night if needed, and perfectly happy to pause for tea. Asterisk. Night workers trade a quiet humor that keeps things light without disturbing the fire. Someone teases the new apprentice for polishing the tongs as if they were serving spoons. Someone else offers you a seat on a log and a caution not to sit on the other log, which is actually a very convincing bundle of pine. You watch a worker lift a conical cap from the kill's little eye and hold up a test. Shard its glaze turning from a dull powder to a whisper of shine. He grins. You grin. There is a universal language of, we're getting there, asterisk effect to lean on. Dragon kilns. Arranged up slopes, let heat rise and spread, making large-scale firings efficient long before chimneys grew tall, or thermometers told tales. Hundreds or thousands of pieces could travel, that climbed together, each chamber a different neighborhood of temperature. And each piece had to endure it all without slumping into a sad, glossy potato. It's part science, part patience, part listening. The killmaster has ears for flame the way a musician has ears for pitch. Asterisk down a side path. Clay waits under cloth, cool as promises. A worker wedges it, folds, presses, turns, driving out bubbles and making the texture obedient. You press the back of your hand to it and feel the whisper of future porcelain. The potential to become something that declines your warmth and returns your calm. It's not your pillow, but it could be a cousin. If you're tempted to throw a bowl right now, I must remind you gently that we are near a conveyor belt of heat, and your enthusiasm, while admirable, doesn't come with a warranty. Asterisk, you pass stacks of trimmed rims and squared blanks, destined to become headrests. They look like sleeping architecture, as if the city's rooftops had been miniaturized and told to wait their turn for glaze. A potter marks a line where the curve should crest to catch a neck. He's done this so often, the measure lives in his shoulder, not his ruler. The moon considers helping, then decides the lamplight has things under control. Asterisk, as the firing settles into its long middle, everyone takes a small rest. Cups of tea appear, and someone offers dried fruit, with a formality that feels like ceremony even though it's only the break between stokes. The heat softens the night's edges until the bamboo looks like brush strokes. You let your thoughts do what glaze does, soften, melt a little, become more continuous. The kill hums like an enormous cat you can't see but trust completely. Another joke floats by, low and careful, if the kill is purring. No one wakes it for a meeting. Asterisk farther up the slope. A second kill dozes between firings. Its bricks warm but quiet. You touch them and feel a long sigh travel through your palm. The bricks have turned orange and gray in places, etched with discreet soot, a kind of patina, the kill earned by doing what it loves. A small lizard uses one of the warm bricks as a mattress and refuses to sign any visitor's log. Asterisk, when the crew stands again, so do you. The rhythm returns, pine glow. Close, then the night breathes with you, in even counts. The kill's work will take hours still, maybe a day if the load is stubborn. You realize you're not waiting for a specific piece, only for the feeling that heat has done its kindness and can rest. Somewhere down the hill, A pillow, like the one you touched, is cooling into itself inside a protective box. Learning how to keep someone's dreams from overheating. When it emerges, it will look like calm made visible. Asterisk, the path back bends between shadows. On the wind, the kill's warm exhale follows a little way, then bows you onward. You carry a faint resin sweetness in your hair, and a new respect for people who speak softly to flames and get answers. The night takes you in again, and your breath remembers that steady, kill-long count. A side door opens from the firing yard into a room that smells like rain remembered, the breath of wet clay, cool and a little sweet. Lanterns hang low over workbenches, soft halos on wood chewed smooth by decades of elbows. You step in, and the air changes temperature, as if the workshop keeps its own small climate. Perfect for clay that prefers to be coaxed, rather than convinced. A bamboo screen clicks in a friendly, insect way behind you. You are not here to rush anything. You are here to watch how cool dreams learn their shape. Asterisk, on the first bench. MOLDS, sit in pairs like puzzle pieces that already know the ending. They're earthenware, themselves tough, fired guides, with gently rounded edges, from so much use. A top half holds a shallow arch with a lotus in relief. Leaves arranged to cradle a human head without actually touching it. The bottom half is simpler, a sturdy frame with a suggestion of a ring foot. A potter presses a rolled slab of clay into the top mold with a bamboo rib, smoothing from center outward, sending tiny sighs of air to the rim. Another potter fits a matching slab to the base mold, then scores the edges with a comb-like tool. You recognize this move, even if you've never made a pot. Score and slip, a dab of liquid clay, and two halves become one promise. Asterisk, you lean closer, and hear the faint squeak of clay against clay as they meet. The potter rocks the join just a hair, listening. The sound changes, the way a door clicks when it seals. He grins without looking up, and you find yourself grinning back. He takes a damp cloth and erases the seam into the curve, the muscle memory of 1,000 joins held in his wrist. The curve is not mathematical, so much as acquainted, every neck different, every pillow trying to be hospitable to most of them. A loop tool cleans a vent hole neatly at the back. You can't help noticing that the vent is placed exactly where the lotus stalk passes, as if the plant itself breathes for you. Asterisk A. Widely accepted truth pads into the room and politely takes a seat. By the song period. Workshops use saggars refractory clay boxes to protect porcelain inside the smoky, ashy dragon kilns. Without them, fly ash wood freckles the glaze. With them, Qingbai and other pale finishes keep their calm, glassy faces. At places like Jingdezhen, saggars multiply like bricks. Entire loads stack up in orderly columns, protected from ash and flame lick. That's the big, solid fact that lets tonight's pillow keep its riverstone sky. Asterisk here. The details become tender and particular. A tray holds small rolls of wadding refractory clay mixed with sand pinched to chickpea size. A boy, not yet old enough to lift a saggar lid, shapes them in a rhythm that matches his humming. Another worker dusts the inside of a saggar with kill wash, a slurry of pulverized stone and clay that will discourage sticking, and sets 3 wads where the pillow's ring foot will touch, like 3 tiny stools for an elegant guest. The saggar itself shows years of service, a crack stitched with a clay strap, an edge rebated to meet its lid again after a mishap, repaired, refired, kept in the family. If objects could wear aprons, this one would. Asterisk, the debate of the evening is gentle and ongoing, a background music of opinions. 2 potters compare notes on ash pine ash versus rice husk ash in the Glaze recipe, which gives the cooler tint, which keeps that dew-like clarity after firing. One swears by a pinch of plant ash from a particular hillside where the wind tastes different. The other nods and says, quite seriously, that wind flavor matters if your goal is to catch a little piece of dawn and pour it over clay. You refrain from offering the modern solution of a spreadsheet because, well, this is going fine without your cells and columns. Besides, your spreadsheet has never smelled like pine in the rain. Asterisk, the top of the pillow comes free of its mold, and into the world. A brush, loaded with darker slip, dances the children into existence to small figures mid-game. A ribbon, a drum, laughter implied. The painter's handle circles at the end of each stroke, a little flourish almost too small to see, unless you're right here. He adds a border of peonies on the short side, because he can and because patterns knit the world together. Before the slip dries, he scratches a few thin lines into it with a needle, letting the pale clay peep through incised highlights that will catch the glaze like morning light. The room goes quiet for that minute, the way kitchens hush when the bread comes out right. Asterisk. You watch a hand press a maker's mark on the underside, nothing ostentatious. Maybe a single character, maybe a tiny flower. A quirky detail travels across the bench. On some days, a potter whispers a wish into the empty pillow before sealing the vent hole rim. A private superstition that no one mocks, because good sleep deserves every ally. Another small habit, a grain or two of sand sprinkled on the saggar floor before the piece goes in. A scratchy insurance policy against sticking. Later, if you ever look closely at an older pillow's foot, you might find a few stubborn sparkles embedded there. A breadcrumb trail back to this room. Asterisk, the saggar lid goes on with a soft thud, and a worker seals the seam with a swipe of clay. The set becomes a ceramic lunchbox for another ceramic, a paradox that somehow makes the most sense in fire. He marks the outside with a chalky number placement in the kiln maps, so the crew will know where it lived. When they open the dragon's long spine tomorrow, or the day after, you realize that everything here is a mixture of tough and tender. Toughness for the heat, tenderness for the way clay forgives fingerprints as long as you stay polite. Asterisk. Historians still wonder how standardized this process truly was across regions. Did workshops rely mostly on press molds like these, churning out consistent curves, or did some centers prefer slab building and freestyle carving for pillows, the way a sculptor might coax a shape from a block? Excavated molds from northern kilns suggest widespread press molding, while certain pillowed menagerists, cats, bamboo nodules, hint that freer hands kept playing. The answer may be yes, which is academics. Nicely dressed way of saying both. Asterisk A. Master carries a saggar to a waiting stack and uses 2 fingers to test the lid's fit, then adds a spacer ring and sets another on top. The vertical column grows a tower of calm, each box the size of a small loaf, air gaps measured by habit more than ruler. You learn that the tower can flex a little without complaining, and that the best height is just below the point where someone would need to stand on something wobbly. Safety by tradition is still safety. Asterisk, you notice a pile of retired saggars outside, a walled little cemetery of hard-used guardians. Their interiors bloom with accidental fossils, glaze drips, sand halos, the occasional ghost of a plate's rim. Someone uses one as a flower pot. Someone else has turned one into a kettle stand. Nothing truly leaves. It just gets a second shift. Asterisk, a slender woman trims a pillow's base while it's still leather hard, her knife lifting ribbons that curl like cinnamon peels. Tiny triangular supports a form of stiltweight nearby, but she shakes her head and chooses wads instead. Stilts leave sharp little kisses no one wants on a sleeping surface. She rounds the vent hole lightly with a reed, smoothing the edge so you won't find it later with your hair, and wonder what tiny door you leaned on. Asterisk. Another widely known piece of the puzzle hums in Cizhou-type workshops often decorate in lively iron oxide brushwork over white slip. Their black-on-white stories robust and unabashed. Many surviving ceramic pillows wear that look like a favorite summer robe. Your pillow, with its lotus and children and pale glaze, borrows some of that spirit, even while it aims at the cool clarity that maritime markets love. The world is already shopping. Even if this room isn't, A quiet laugh ripples through the crew when a lid refuses. At first, to seat one of those stumbles that only needs patience. Someone calls it the saggar stretching before its journey. You get the vibe. Everything here is a traveler. Clay travels from pit to bench. Ideas travel from village to village. Finished work travels by cart, canal, and sea. The saggar is just the first carriage in a long, courteous procession. Asterisk, you reach out and touch a dry mold, feeling the faint embed of a peony that has guided thousands of repeats. It's cool, and you resist the modern urge to label it top, and definitely top with a marker you thankfully don't have. Instead, you watch a potter dust the mold with fine ash so the slab releases cleanly. He winks at you. He claims rice husk. Ash makes the best parting powder. Pine ash is for charm, not for this job. The debate loops again, cheerful as sparrows. Asterisk, when the last saggar of the hour joins its stack. The room settles back into the rhythm of wiping, smoothing, and waiting. Your breath mirrors it without asking permission. You realize you know the pillow's secret map, now the way it's hollow keeps air moving. The careful seam buried under glaze, the small hole that listens to the room and returns a cooler version of the night. You also know it travels into heat inside a shelter made of the same earth, like a nesting doll of patience. Asterisk, the door opens to the killyard again, and a warm exhale meets the workshop's cool. You step through that meeting of climates and carry both the damp promise of clay and the dry vow of fire. The crew nods their goodnights to the stacks as if the saggars were sleepers. In a way they are. So are you? You have learned a trick. Tuck your worries into a box, give them a reliable number, and let the night do the cooking. You drift from the killyard into a street that smells of roasted barley and evening rain, then follow a ribbon of lanterns toward a tea house with a signboard shaped like a cloud. Inside, the hush is lively, if that makes sense, voices low and amused. The soft clack of chess pieces, the occasional whisk, like a tiny broom sweeping the surface of a pond. A server waves you to a bench, polished by elbows, and summer stories. Their eyes flicker to your unfamiliar shoes, then they look away with professional grace, as if time travelers are good for business, but best left unmentioned. Asterisk, steam beads on the windows. The room is an orchestra of small sounds. Bamboo whisks, stir bowls in quick, breath-matched strokes. Water falls from a clay kettle's beak with a measured thread. Someone drags a ghost stone across a wooden grid and changes the weather of an entire corner. The bowls themselves are a study in contrasts. Some are pale, ding-like glows. Others are deep, dark Jian, wherewith streaks called hairs, fur, or oil spots, glazes that make foam look like snowfall at midnight. A widely known truth settles comfortably at the table. In the Song era, powdered tea is whisked to a fine foam, and connoisseurs often favor dark bowls because white froth shows best against them, the way stars crowd closer on the darkest nights. Asterisk, your bowl arrives, and the server grinds a pinch of tea from a compact cake with a small hand mill, the grains falling like light sand. They pour in hot water and whiskan, arc of bamboo, tines fanning a breeze you can feel on your wrist. The surface turns creamy, not milky, but clouded, the foam blooming into what tea lovers call flowers, delicate bubbles arrayed so evenly it seems the bowl rehearsed. You lift it and discover a delightful hazard, a foam mustache. Fortunately, this is the kind of room where a foam mustache counts as a sign of good character. You dab it away with dignity. We will say nothing. Asterisk, on your left, two scholars tilt their bowls and compare notes on summer comforts. One declares that a porcelain pillow is the only honest friend in July. It doesn't flatter you, it cools you, and the other nods, claiming that his cousin swears by a cat-shaped headrest because the ears keep thieves from stealing the breeze. A cheerful exaggeration, but you like the logic. They trade stories of motifs. Lotus for clarity, boys at play for luck, tigers for gentle guardianship. You join with a murmured observation about a lotus stalk doubling as a vent. They agree, and add that the best pillows, like the best tea, do their work without bragging. Asterisk, the server brings a small plate of sugared lotus seeds, a bowl of cooled mung bean soup, and a tiny saucer of salted plum summer cures, with the charm of grandmotherly advice. You taste each in turn, and feel your temperature drop a polite degree. A lesser-known detail glides across the table. The city keeps ice in storage, hauled from winter rivers and pond houses, and a sliver sometimes finds its way into the tea-house jar to make the air a breath cooler. The server sets a rough chunk in a clay basin by the door, and the room leans toward it like flowers to shade asterisk at the far table. A quiet tea match begins, nothing rowdy, just two friends testing skill. Powder measured, water cooled to a number, the wrist somehow knows. Whisking in concentric circles until the foam lays smooth and glossy, no big bubbles breaking the peace. They watch to see whose froth clings longest to the rim when sipped, whose surface keeps its soft color without streaking. It's latte art before lattes, with fewer leaves and more actual leaves. The winner shrugs, and both smile into their bowls. It's a sport where everyone gets calmer. Asterisk, someone recites a few lines about tea being snow caught in a green wind, and someone else counters with a proverb about the first cup washing dust, the second opening the heart, and the third asking us to stop counting. The talk circles naturally to water. One guest insists spring water from stone tastes truest. Another whispers that snowmelt is best, if you can catch it, though today's ice is good enough. Both agree that the water's mood matters. You sip and find that your own mood now matches the bowl's, faintly sweet, with room for air. Asterisk, historian voices, if they were here, would nod at another known thread. An emperor once wrote, with meticulous affection, about tea whisking. Bowls water praising the foam-like surface snow and the calm precision it requires. You don't need his title to feel the lineage. You can see it in the way the server's whisk lifts and settles, in the respectful pause after pouring. That pause is a ceremony without a stage. Asterisk, the talk returns to sleep. A physician's apprentice at the next table prescribes simple graces, move evening meals earlier, cultivate shade in courtyards with vines, sip chrysanthemum, and choose a pillow that refuses your heat. He produces a tiny bag of dried mint, as if offering a trick, suggests tucking a sprig near a pillow's vent. The room hums in approval. Then he adds a very human remedy. Stop arguing with the weather. It is older and will win. You take the note gratefully and try not to argue with anything, including your eyelids. Asterisk, the server glances at your shoes again. Not judging, simply calculating your stride, should a sudden rain require a dash. You ask about the bowls, and they share something between gossip and craft. Dark Jian bowls make foam sing, but pale bowls are kinder to green teas and moonlit rooms. They lift a black bowl to the lamp and show you the hare's fur trails, streaks that look like speed, frozen into glaze. The same obsession that keeps kilns breathing also keeps tea houses whisking. A desire to hold a small piece of sky and share it while it's warm. Asterisk. Historians still wonder how much of this tea house sport the whisking competitions. The reverence for foam traveled outward, and how monks carried tea habits across the sea. Merchants carried bowls. Sailors carried thirst. But did the everyday game of whose froth lingers seed ceremonies elsewhere? Or did it remain largely a private pleasure of cities and scholars? The question hangs like steam above a kettle, present and shapely, not urgent to condense. Asterisk, a man with ink on his sleeve pulls a folded print from his sleeve woodblock jokes for sale. A few lines about a scholar so attached to his porcelain pillow that he brings it to a tea party and uses it as a book stand. The room chuckles, and the scholars beside you look at their bowls as if considering whether the idea has merit. Your neck votes no. Your books vote maybe. It is a gentle, good-natured humor, the kind that leaves no bruise. Asterisk outside. A patrol passes with hand clappers marking the hour, the sound soft as wooden rain. Inside, you watch a waiter deftly refill kettles from a clay reservoir that sits half buried in the floor to keep water cool. The restaurant is clever all around. Windows open high for cross breeze. Bamboo screens trembling like polite eyelids. A floor that pretends to be a pond by staying just a touch cooler than the air. The furniture seems to have learned to sigh. Asterisk. One scholar leans over and recommends a stall at the canal night market that sells Qingbai bowls thin as petals and pillows glazed the color of early morning. Ask for the one with children and the little drum, he says, not knowing he has described the exact pair of figures already running around your thoughts. The other recommends a poet, someone who wrote about pillow-cool sleep as the only fair competition to cool wakefulness. You promise to look for the stall, and you quietly award yourself the poem, asterisk, A. Small joke passes between you and the server when your whisk catches the bowl and makes an enthusiastic squeak. They nod solemnly and whisper that the bowl approves. It simply likes to sing. You settle the whisk, and the foam spreads in tiny, even blooms. The room feels like a shared breath, inhaled together and released without anyone needing to count. Asterisk when you finish. The server tips the last of the kettle water onto the coals, and steam rises in a comfortable sigh. Your bowl leaves a pale ring of damp on the table, a quiet signature that fades as you watch. The scholars return to their chess. The apprentice wraps his mint. The ice sighs again as someone pushes the basin a finger width closer to the doorway breeze. Your body makes the sort of contented inventory that doesn't require words. Cooler skin, slower thoughts, an easy neck pretending it already knows the pillow waiting for it. Asterisk you step back into the lane, carrying the taste of foam and the echo of gentle arguments about bowls and breezes. The lantern outside trembles slightly, as if nodding at everything that just happened. Down the street, the night market unfurls like a low, starry river. Somewhere among its stalls, a porcelain pillow glows like a quiet moon, and you know your hand will find it by memory alone. The lane tilts toward water, and you follow the lanterns until they become small moons in a row, trembling gently on a black ribbon that carries its own breeze. A boatman lifts a pole with quiet authority, sets it into the shallow margin, and the world begins to glide. The canal accepts you the way a long corridor does, straight-backed, echoing, full of footsteps that happen to be waves. You sit near the prow, and the boat drinks the lantern light, pouring it back as moving gold. I will stop you from leaning too far over the side to admire your reflection. It's flattering. But the canal has no interest in catching you. Asterisk, the banks are low and polite. Stone steps leading to loading platforms. Wooden ladders that remember every foot. Warehouse doors cracked just enough to breathe. The air smells like wet rope, rice sacks, and the faint sugared sigh of candied fruit. A man on the opposite bank hums lines of a song about boats and patience, and the sound seems to shingle across the water and settle under our bench. Far ahead, a bridge arches like a cat beginning to stretch, and your boatman aims for the notch of its shadow without hurrying. He could do this with his eyes closed, but we prefer the open variety. Asterisk, you move past a barge stacked with bundled bamboo, the lengths clicking softly, as if the cargo were whispering among itself about summer nights and cool mats. A smaller skiff slides by with baskets of peaches nested in leaves. The fragrance turns the air pink for a few seconds, and then floats behind you like polite applause. The water glances up against the hull with little, regular compliments. The lanterns on the banks gather into families, and you realize the city is still very much awake, just not in a way that asks for your opinion. Asterisk A. Widely known fact settles onto the prow with more balance than either of us. The Grand Canal is a spine of water linking north and south, an old and disciplined marvel by the song, moving tribute, grain, salt, silk, and every possible curiosity between the Yangtze Plains and the northern capitals. On its shoulders, cities like Kaifeng thrive. with night markets regulated but lively, lantern-lit stalls flickering long after sunset. You feel that truth without needing a map. The canal is a road with a reflective surface and rumors that carry asterisk. The boatman nods toward the far bank where a market brightens the dark like a patch of embers. We drift closer, stalls under awnings made of oil paper and pale cloth, the colors all peaches and cream in lantern light. You step onto a creaking plank with the least dramatic of flourishes, 2 hands on the boatman's arm, 1 foot feeling for the dock end. I congratulate you for mastering not falling. It's an underrated skill, asterisk. The market smells like sugar on coals, herbs in cloth bags, and the breath of woven rush. A mat seller shakes out a cool mat, liang shi, woven of split bamboo. It unrolls with a hushed rain sound, and the vendor runs the back of his hand along it to show the difference between warm day and cool night. You touch it and feel the soft logic of straight lines. Air has a pathway. Heat has less ambition. Beside him, another trader lifts a mosquito net on a hoop. It blooms from his grip like a pale jellyfish, and he sways it to show how it breathes. A lesser-known demonstration travels across the aisle. A shopkeeper holds a tiny incense stick beneath the net, and the smoke threads through slowly, just enough to whisper that air moves while mosquitoes with larger dreams will not. It's a bedtime sales pitch that earns its keep. Asterisk, the drum of footsteps on planks, the creak of ropes, the soft exchange of money like river stones changing hands. Everything keeps your thoughts walking in even lines. A child sleeps sideways across a stall counter, a strand of candied hawthorn paused in his fingers like an unfinished necklace. 2 women negotiate the price of a fan with a scene of lotus leaves that assures summer it is already under control. Somewhere a man with a 2-stringed fiddle tests a scale so softly that even the instrument isn't certain it happened. Asterisk. You round a corner and find the ceramics the glow of pale bowls like moons in different phases. Jars that hold a shine, as if it were a second liquid, and there, with a breath that thinks it's a little drum roll. A porcelain headrest glazed the color of early morning. The stallkeeper looks up and smiles the way people do when they recognize someone who hasn't visited yet. He lifts the pillow with both hands and turns it to catch the lantern. The surface answers with the softest hint of blue, a Qingbai whisper that prefers understatement. The lotus and children play in the sides, and the vent hole hides modestly where the stalk would be. Asterisk. The vendor sets the pillow on a folded cloth and invites your palm to test it, which is really an invitation for your breath to slow. The glaze is exactly what you remember, riverstone cool and indifferent to your warmth in the nicest possible way. He taps the underside lightly, and the hollow answers with a small room's echo. He explains that it sat in a saggar while the kiln did the hot thinking up. Fact that gives you a flash of the workshop's bundles of wadding, the soft sealing of lids, the tall, careful stacks ready to meet fire like well-behaved guests. Asterisk. Another stall across the aisle sells pillow slips, light linen rectangles to lay over ceramic on midsummer nights. If you prefer, the seller waves one like a surrender flag and then laughs because sleep is not a battle. You consider buying a slip just to please the part of you that loves tidy solutions, but the pillow seems to want bare contact. It's a confident piece. It knows what it's good at. Asterisk, a candied fruit vendor drifts by, and the stallkeeper hails him with family grammar. Tradespeople tend to live in one another's hours. You accept a sliver of sugared melon because generosity is the market's currency, and you are trying to keep up. The sweetness is a brief lantern behind your teeth. An old story walks with it, the origin tale of candied haw, a concubine cured by fruit simmered in honey, a palace grateful ever after, which might be a legend from around this era, or might be a later embroidery around a very good snack. Historians still wonder how much truth hides under the syrup, and whether the tale started in a kitchen or a storyteller's purse. Asterisk. We circle back to the water's edge because the market leans that way on warm nights. faces turning to the canal for free cooling. A boat rocks gently, with a stack of bamboo mats tied fast. The seller unties one and demonstrates a roll so perfect it should teach yoga. He pats it like a well-behaved dog. You resist adopting it on the spot. Another stall displays net poles carved with small carp and waves, a reminder that even practical things like mosquito frames deserve a cameo in art. There's a quiet agreement here that beauty is a form of kindness. The pillow vendor returns, this time wrapping the headrest in straw and rice husk padding, and then in a soft cloth like a robe. He places it into a wooden crate and wedges it just so with folded paper. He explains, almost apologetically, that porcelain likes to travel with trained chaperone straw for shocks, paper for persuasion, a quirk you'll carry home. Some crates come stamped with roots, little inked place names that become travel stories if you keep the box. He shows you one with a faded character for south on the corner, the memory of a river written into wood. You pay with the calm of someone who already feels the weight's promise. The vendor bows a little and throws in a tiny sachet of mint, because generosity is a favorite local hobby. He suggests tucking it near the vent on hot nights, with the understood instruction that you can ignore the sachet if you prefer the plain language of clay and air. He also points you toward a stall that sells bamboo stands a low frame to keep the pillow off the mat in very damp weather, because apparently even headrests enjoy good ventilation. A factual anchor hums beneath the lanterns. Night markets in Song cities operate under regulations that make them both lively and orderly stalls arranged by trade. Lamps required, patrols pacing with wooden clappers, curfew signals more conversational than punitive. The result is a city that sleeps in shifts, with room for late purchases of fans, nets, and bowls, while the rest of the world leans toward dreams. If daytime is a ledger, nighttime is a poem on the back of the page. Scholars still puzzle gently over how these finer ceramics moved. Were pieces like your porcelain pillow impulse buys at markets like this, or more often special orders through guilds and shops, with the night stalls carrying simpler ware? Excavations and records suggest both, everyday basics alongside refined things, regional styles mingling in the same lamplight. The question never presses too hard, content to wander the aisles and listen. The boatman whistles, a small, rising note that means he'll wait, but not forever. You tuck the crate under your arm and feel the reassuring small heft. The net seller calls a good night. That sounds like a blessing. The mat seller rolls a mat as if he is folding dusk itself, and promises that your summer will behave if you give it a smooth place to land. You promise nothing, but your shoulders drop another millimeter. Dusk takes the color of cooled metal as you step from river air to road air. Your crate tucked under your arm like a small, well-behaved pet. The city loosens its grip, walls thinning into fields becoming flatlands edged with poplar rows that point like quiet signposts toward the west. You feel the ground change beneath your sandals, less mud, more fine grit that remembers wind. Ahead, a line of animals hums, their shadows long and considerate. The caravan is gathering itself, not in a hurry. Bells stitched to breast straps, speaking to one another in small, companionable chimes. A camel watches you with an expression that says it has already seen everything, including whatever you are about to do. It chews like a philosopher trying not to show off. The handler lifts your crate, weighs it quickly in both hands, and nods as if it has passed a test. He swaddles it in felt, then in plaited straw, binding the bundle with a patient geometry of ropes. You admire the knots. He flips the package once and tucks it into a saddle basket, balancing it against a sack of pressed tea bricks. Your pillow finds itself in good company. Tea travels with a mission, and porcelain likes friends who know the way to a coastless horizon. You walk beside the lead animal, at first, learning the caravan's pace, It is not slow. It is deliberate. The bells keep time without scolding, each one a little different. A handbell chorus that makes dusk feel cared for. A boy at the rear taps a small drum now and then to tighten the rhythm. Not so much a command as a hummed reminder. You feel the steps settle in your shins. Breathing starts to prefer the camel metronome. Your mind floats up to watch the scene from just above shoulder height. An excellent vantage for people who like not to trip. Asterisk, a widely agreed truth takes a place on the ridgeline of your thoughts. These overland routes Silk Road is the modern umbrella, but it's really a braid of roads and agreements thread through the Hexi Gansu corridor to oases, like Jianji and Dunhuang, where water and trees hold the desert open like friendly doors. Bactrian camels, double-humped and stubborn in ways that turn out to be virtues. Carry woven bales of silk, bolts of cloth, sacks of spice, and, yes, crates of ceramic that would prefer not to test their shatter threshold. Beacon towers, older than memory, punctuate the flats, raised fingers ready to lift smoke in trouble, but tonight they simmer quietly, brick shoulders cooling with the sky. Asterisk, the air gives you the smells that survive for miles, felt warmed by sun, cumin from a dinner that happened hours ago, date palms remembered on someone's hands, lamp oil corked tight. The handler checks girths and nose pegs, murmuring the alphabet of a language that camels trust. He shows you a small trick after you offer to help, a twist of rope through the load loop that locks against itself and never binds, then gently suggests you keep your fingers. The knight would like to leave with the same number you brought. Asterisk, as evening becomes something more silver, stars show up in their practiced order. The Big Dipper tilts like a ladle at the horizon. The Milky Way pulls a faint river over your head, a second map above the gravel. The handler points with his chin instead of his finger manners extend to constellations. And you understand that up is part of the way west is found. The bells carry sound forward and backward, like a friendly rumor, so no one loses the thread. You try a half step faster, and discover the caravan already chose the right speed for you. Asterisk A, lesser-known thing slips into your pocket. Some caravans tuck tiny clay pellets into water skins before a long leg. The pellets rattle if a seam starts to leak. A quiet alarm you can hear over bells and sandal gravel. Another trick, a scrap of gauze tied over a mouth-breather's scarf, makes dust decide it's not invited. The handler smears a pinch of oil at the camel's nostril hinge, a daily bit of kindness against grit. He lifts a tea brick fondly and jokes that, at the far end, this square of pressed leaves can be sipped or counted. Frontier markets have a soft spot for currency you can boil. Asterisk, your crate shifts slightly when the path dips, and the handler adds a small pouch of smooth stones to the opposite side, making a balance as convincing as a sermon. He pats the load, and the camel sighs. We are all improved by even weight, you think, including minds that try to carry more weather than the day requires. You breathe out, and the road obliges with a longer line. Asterisk A. Courier, from a little way ahead, comes back with the news that the next inn more of a courtyard, with walls and gratitude, than an inn with chandeliers has space, water, and, as he puts it, the smell of stew like an old friend. You do not remember applying for happiness, and yet here it is. You flick a thumb at the edge of the straw wrap, and feel the memory of Glaze beneath it cool under all this travel. A thought you sit with for a few quiet steps. Asterisk. We drift under a low ridge where poplars mark an irrigation ditch, and hear frogs with big opinions. A woman riding side saddle hums a tune that your bells decide to harmonize with. A pack of smaller animals, donkeys, perhaps adds their occasional commentary, the verbal equivalent of a nod. The path here goes firm, and then flower, small stretches of gravel giving way to fine loess dust that lifts at the ankles, and then settles again as if reluctant to leave the ground. Your feet begin to understand the road the way hands understand a familiar cup handle. It's a kindness. Asterisk, the talk around you, when it happens, is practical and soft. Someone determines whether the wind tonight is coming from the mountains or from the big empty left of the map. Someone else says the left has a better sense of humor. There is laughter that doesn't carry, laughter in the bell register. A joke touches down lightly. A camel is the original reasonable supervisor, rarely pleased, never impressed, always steady. You smile because the camel in front of you turns its head at exactly that moment. Unoffended asterisk. A fact presses a gentle finger to your sleeve. Songyera porcelain travels far, and while more and more of it rides ships out of southern ports across monsoon lanes, some pieces still cross these dry roads, passing through hands that barter tea for horses, horses for salt, salt for stories. Archaeologists have found Chinese ceramics in Central Asian and Middle Eastern sites, a breadcrumb trail of fired clay. Your pillow's glaze is a color that navigates well in lamplight. It will look like a piece of mourning even where nights feel more like ink. Asterisk historians still wonder, and kindly, about ratios and routes for porcelain in this century. Did overland caravans carry mostly special orders, small batches? Precious things, while bulk wares favored the maritime lanes where holds could cradle thousands of bowls in straw. Or did political weather sometimes reverse preferences, sending more clay west by sand when seas were restless or ports changed hands? Records and shards suggest a choreography that changed with every decade's wind. The question remains friendly, a scholar's camel-matching step with a sailor's compass. Still walking alongside us into the starlight, asterisk, the caravan reaches the inn by full dark. A high gate opens like a staged yawn, and everyone files into a square courtyard with a tree that throws deeper shadows into the well. Platforms line the walls, planks raised a foot off the ground, and people spread mats, while a stove in the corner tells soup stories to anyone who will listen. The handler eases the camel's load and slides your crate onto a low bench. He taps it twice, lightly, as if greeting someone through a door. You think the pillow answers by simply continuing to be itself. Asterisk, a steward appears with a dipper and a clay jug, and you wash dust from your hands over a tub where the splash sounds luxurious. Another man brings a dish of slices melon, or gourd, a small mound of salt crystals that look like broken stars. You take one piece of each, and it resets your entire operating system. The courtyard smells of coarse rope, cumin, and damp plaster that remembers the day. Lanterns hang like moons that wanted to be helpful and succeeded. Asterisk, one corner wall wears chalk marks tallying previous nights, a soft habit that helps no one and pleases everyone. Nearby, a merchant unrolls a scrap of paper and writes 3 characters on the side of a crate: destination, portage. Care then blows on the ink until it loses its shine. Your handler marks your straw wrap with 2 strokes. Not letters, but a private code that says, hours, westbound. Keep above sex. He grins and offers you a spoon of stew so hot you have to blow across it like a musician soothing a reed. A tiny joke arrives. Try not to audition for the role of person who burns their tongue and then pretends it's fine. You pass the audition with a perfect, unshowy inhale. Asterisk. Morning folds into a handful of mornings, and the road lengthens until the wind begins to taste faintly of metal, and then, unmistakably, of salt. Your crate rides in a new company, now palanquins of goods shouldering. Toward the coast, its straw harness warm to the touch, and your name, or something like it, still chalked on the corner. Bamboo thins into docks, and fields become masts. Gulls practice immaculate landings on mooring posts, as if auditioning for calm. The air is different here. Pepper tickles the back of your throat. Pitch and pine resin lean in, and a breeze arrives with that maritime habit of pretending it was always here first. Asterisk. Quays of dressed stone step down to the water, and the harbor wakes in layers. Long high-sterned ships, where woven mat sails furled tight like quiet fans. Smaller craft shuttle cargo between hull and shore, nimble as dragonflies. The voices are many and neighborly. Min dialect sings next to Persian and Arabic greetings. Malay and Tamil drift like ribbons over coils of rope. A man rolls past with a sack of pepper that's sized like gravel. A woman lifts a tray of pearls that look like tiny moons, convinced to meet daylight. Your crate gets weighed, stamped, and padded in a sequence so efficient it feels like polite magic. Asterisk, the wide truth arrives, as steady as a tide, by the song Era. This port known to Arab and Persian writers as Zayton, and now to you, by its breeze and stone ranks, among the busiest maritime gateways in the world, with a government office watching over foreign trade, registering cargo, and taking its tidy share. Customs officials measure and record, tallying ceramics, silk, and copper cash against pepper, aromatics, and rare woods. It's a choreography of lists that somehow never interrupts the sound of water under planks. The clerk glances at your shoes, accepts your existence, and stamps your paperwork with a chop that dries as fast as sea wind. Asterisk. You pass a mosque courtyard built of pale blocks and shadows, an arcade of stone, cool enough to convince summer to behave. Merchants slip inside, remove sandals, and leave Sultan Road dust at the threshold of prayer. Nearby stands a temple to Mazu, the sea goddess, where sailors knot red ribbons, with the modest urgency of people who have learned to speak politely to weather. Bells, everywhere bells, on shrines, on pack animals, on the harbor's small capstans that sing when men turn them. The city's polyglot.com makes your shoulders drop a notch you didn't know remained. Asterisk A. Shipwright walks you along a hull under repair, tapping planks with a mallet to hear the difference between promise and problem. He gestures to the inside. Wooden bulkheads divide the belly into compartments. A truth so practical it feels like kindness if one section leaks. The others refuse to panic. He points again to a little dish near the tiller, where a sliver of magnetized iron floats on a leaf of reed and water, obedient to a north it cannot see. The floating needle is quiet and persuasive. Even the gulls seem impressed. You realize the ship has more instruments than a band, and all of them prefer understatement. Asterisk. Cats patrol the rails with the air of salaried employees. One inspects your crate with a whisker, accepts its existence, and moves on to supervise a heap of coiled line. Sailcloth smells faintly of rush mats and sun. Matting is lashed to bamboo battens. When the sails open, they will move like pages turned by a thoughtful giant. Workers pass slings under crates of Qingbai bowls, wrapped in straw like birds' nests. Headrests padded as if for sleep even while awake, and lower them into the hold with a rhythm nearly musical. Dip, strain, settle, breathe. You lean to listen, and are tactfully reminded by me not to lean too far. Harbor water respects no list of references. Asterisk. Pepper stands in sacks by the hundred, a constellation of little dark planets that make your nose want to sneeze and your pride want to pretend it doesn't. You lose the battle once, quietly, into your sleeve. It's fine. Pepper is used to being that friend. Perfume merchants walk past with parcels that smell like frankincense and sandalwood, their steps unconsciously slow, as if scent prefers a dignified pace. The pearl trader introduces a shell the size of a soup plate and lifts out a string of spheres, so even they seem to be counting one another. Your crate sits among this theater with serene confidence. It knows it carries a cool moon of its own. Asterisk A. Master Packer opens a jar of rice husk chaff and pours it into gaps around a stack of porcelain, building soft sandbanks that keep waves from writing their opinions on glaze. He adds, shards, yes, purposeful broken bits as dunnage, to wedge crates tight. A shipboard confession that even pristine cargo benefits from ancestors who have already done their shattering. He winks. Nothing on a ship is purely decorative, not even the quiet. You store the lesson next to the memory of wadding and saggar lids. The world keeps inventing buffers, and most are made of patience. Asterisk. By the pierhead, pilots and captains trade, whether in paragraphs, The summer monsoon will lift them south and west. The winter winds will carry them back. And between those promises lies everything that qualifies as adventure, and the opposite of adventure, which is arrival. A pilot draws a line in spilled salt on a crate lid, showing how the coast hums past Guangdu, Champa, Srivijaya. The Coromandalich name, a door that opens by wind. He laughs softly when you ask how he knows where he is at night. He taps his temple, then the floating needle, then the sky. The sky accepts the compliment. Asterisk. You pause at a stone yard where anchors wait manoliths with drilled eyes. Old solutions that never quite retire. Each bears chisel marks like tallying notches. One wears a shallow Arabic inscription, another a weather-lulled lotus. Quanzhou remembers its visitors in stone and in script. Farther along, a small warehouse wall glows with carved tablets, telling customs rules in Chinese and in foreign tongues. A multilingual reminder that the sea agrees with you only if you agree with it first. A smaller, friendly fact leans against your ear. Sailors sometimes sweeten the living water in casks with a handful of toasted rice. A trick that calms taste and discourages the cask from growing an attitude. Another quirk rides with the compass. A second needle kept wrapped in silk and stroked against lodestone on quiet mornings. A talisman against complacency and rust. You watch a boy hold the spare needle like a tiny sword and then slide it back into its soft scabbard with theatrical seriousness that earns him a smile from 3 directions. Asterisk. Historians still wonder about names and nets. When medieval Arab writers praised Zayton, did they mean strictly this walled port and quay, or the larger harbor network that stretched along inlets and sandbars a maritime neighborhood, rather than a single street address? Most agree, we are standing in the right place. But the exact outline of that praise remains pleasantly debatable. A coastline that moves a little with every new tide of evidence. Another scholarly question traces roots on paper. Were most of the Qingbai pieces loaded here borne on wheels at Jingdezhen and rafted river by river to the sea? Or did nearby kilns contribute more than their surviving shards admit? The answers yawn and stretch and promise to wake later. Asterisk. The customs officer who stamped your crate earlier reappears with a brush tucked behind one ear. The universal sign of someone who has earned the right to misplace a brush. He checks a tally, nods you toward a gangplank, and you follow your parcel aboard. The deck has the gloss of oil and salt. Ropes lie like sleeping snakes, scaled with tar. A sailor wedges your crate into a lattice of others and drives a wooden pin that makes a satisfying, final sound. He ties a loop and tucks the end in a way so elegant you vow to upgrade your knots back home from shoelace to shoelace with ambitions. Asterisk. Evening leans in. The dock becomes lanterns and silhouettes. A porter balancing a hinge of yokes. A cook fanning a brazier that puffs like a tired dragon. A pair of friends sharing dates out of a cloth pocket, each one peeled like a tiny gift. Somewhere a short prayer rises and is answered by the tiny bell someone hung from a beam near the stern. More ritual than alarm, a reminder to match the sea's patience with your own. The breeze freshens and smells cleaner than your best intentions. Asterisk. You take a turn along the quay and find a small hostel pressed against the harbor side like a contented barnacle. Its balcony faces the masts. Its rooms drink the wind. On the common table lies a set of star maps ink dots on silk, constellations annotated with roots and stories. A sailor traces the arc of the scorpion with a forefinger, describing a channel he swears is shallower when that tail rises first. His friend rolls his eyes and the international language of correlation is not causation, and then both smile because old oceans understand all dialects of hope. Asterisk. The hostel's balcony keeps breathing the harbor in and out, and your cup remembers to be empty at exactly the right time. Inside, the common room smells of rope, tea, and the soft cinnamon of coil incense that hangs from a hook and burns in slow spirals. The manager pinches a tiny brass pellet into the ash, a trick you almost missed. When the ember reaches it later, the pellet will fall into a dish with a gentle ping to mark the watch. Timekeeping by polite raindrop. You approve on principle. Asterisk sailors lean over the long table with star maps smoothed flat like stretched nets. The silk glimmering where oil lamp light touches it. A chart shows constellations as clusters of pinpricks named in neat characters. Another, brought by a guest, who rolled it carefully from a leather tube, labels the same sky with different words. Zaldabrin shifts to another name, and Canopus, the old man's star, wears a title that sounds like a blessing. Fingers tap paths that match memory more than ink. Someone places a bowl in the middle and turns it to show the way the sky appears to revolve, as if proving that the heavens enjoy a good demonstration as much as anyone. Asterisk A. Widely accepted truth leans companionably beside the maps. Monsoon winds in this ocean run like trains. With timetables, the summer winds carry ships outward from these coasts, toward Kampa, the Malay world, India, and beyond. The winter winds bring them home again. Pilots plan around that pulse, making the year itself a kind of map. The sailors here talk of leaving with the big breath and returning with the cool answer, and they agree that you should never argue with the season. You file that advice with the other good ones you've been collecting, like test and not your luck. Asterisk a cat leaps onto the bench, inspects the maps with whiskers, then makes a decisive nap on the edge of the cloth. No one mind. It's standard maritime practice to include a feline stamp of approval. A Persian-speaking merchant points to Polaris with a thumbnail and calls it by his word. A Fujian pilot answers with his own, then steers the conversation to the Dipper, whose two pointer stars act like tiny teachers, showing north to anyone willing to look. A man from farther west draws a line to the bright southern torch of Canopus and says, almost reverently, that when it lifts above the horizon, you are far down the world and should keep a cautious heart. Another nods and touches the character for that same star. La Rinsim, the old men whose appearance in Chinese lore sometimes promised long life, and sometimes just reminded people to drink more water in the heat. Stars like pulling double duty. Asterisk someone produces a small wooden card with a cord and knots. A traveler's tool that measures the height of a star against the horizon, one knot for one place, another knot for another. A tidy string of latitudes you can hold in a palm. He doesn't name it. He just shows how he lines the lower edge with the horizon and the upper with the North Star, and then checks which knot rests at his teeth. It's as homely and brilliant as using your thumb to guess the size of the moon and not being wrong. The room gives him the respectful silence reserved for useful things that are a little bit like magic. Asterisk. The coil incense sighs, and somewhere in the curve of its burn, a pellet drops ping. The watch turns, not with a shout, but with a tiny bell that knows where it belongs. A lesser-known habit rides with that sound. The hostiles ledger includes a page for stars sighted and tails traded, a running joke that doubles as memory. The manager scratches in a note about a pilot who swears the night smells different when the summer wind turns. And if you think about it, you can smell what he means, the pepper thread thinning, a cleaner edge to the breeze. You resist the urge to suggest a smellometer. The room is doing fine without your inventions. Asterisk, the bed spaces here are simple platforms with woven mats, each with a wooden pillow or a ceramic headrest nearby for those who like their necks told what to do. The manager, having correctly guessed your loyalties, sets a Qingbai pillow by your spot, its glaze faintly blue, even in lamplight. Someone inked a star on one side, another lotus on the other, just a dot and line map that makes the pillow feel like a tiny, domesticated sky. You rest your hand on it, and feel that familiar refusal to hoard warmth. The clay seems to have kept a piece of river and a piece of dawn for itself, ready to loan them to your cheek. Asterisk, you lie down with your head set along the curve where neck meets ease. The common room keeps murmuring. A pilot traces a route from Aden to Quanzhou with a wet fingertip. a line that dries into nothing but remains in memory exactly where he left it. He tells a polite ghost story about two sailors who fell asleep on a rope coil, woke with its pattern imprinted as scales on their cheeks, and convinced themselves they'd been hugged by a sea dragon that approved of their course. There is soft laughter. You smile without moving your face. There are muscles you're saving for dreams. Asterisk A. Fact takes a seat by your sleeping place and refuses to leave until acknowledged. The song Mariners you're listening to use the compass, the floating needle kind you saw earlier, along with stars and sun, a trio that makes the world less guessy. Records from this century and the next will talk about needles obedient to a north they cannot see, about boats leaving from these keys with instruments that prefer understatements. The pilot with the finger track lifts the reed dish, swirls the needle, and watches it settle again, as if to confirm the point. He sets the dish down next to your pillow like a second, very small moon. Asterisk, the coil incense measures another notch ping. You drift at that sound the way ships drift at slack tide. The pillow doesn't hold you, it suggests. The cool travels across your ear and down a few carefully chosen muscles that were convinced they needed to work nights. Out on the balcony, the harbor speaks in creaks and cat feet. The laminated layers of the day start to peel apart like old paint set free by patient weather. If you snore, you will blame the cat. The cat will accept your apology preemptively. Asterisk historians still wonder, and without the need to raise their voices, how standardized these star maps and pilot's notes were in the Song Age, or their official, widely distributed sailing directions that looked like these inked, silk-fixed routes annotated by a bureaucracy. Or did practical wisdom travel mostly in conversations like this, wrist to wrist, on tabletops and under lamps? Few such manuals have survived in an unambiguous way, and the sea keeps secrets very well. The debate feels like two currents sliding past each other in the same water, both true, depending on where your oar bites. Asterisk, a quirk of the room deserves a smile. Next to each sleeping place sits a cup of barley tea and a sprig of mint, a small hedge against salt dreams, the manager claims, with the authority of someone who has seen every version of midnight, that a sip before sleep makes the stars behave in reasonable ways. You comply and find that the mint's cool agrees with the pillow's cool, a duet for a tired forehead. The only risk is that you might love this exact combination too much and attempt to recreate it with whatever is in your modern cupboard later, which will not work because your cupboard does not also contain this room. Asterisk, more stories drift over you like sails unfurling. A man from near Gujarat explains, by tracing with a noodle of cold rice on the table, how he marks a latitude song in his head, each verse ending with a city where the next wind favors you. Another seafarer tells of a temple bell on a headland that rings with a tone he swears changes when the tide turns. And although the room offers predictable skepticism, no one asks him to stop listening. Someone jokes that every harbor has a cat and a liar. The cat is always in charge. The cat, asleep on the charts, silently agrees. Asterisk, the pillow relays more of its quiet refusal to take heat seriously. A breeze comes through the shutters in polite squares, moves across the glaze, and gives your skin the sense that the night is attending to you personally. Your breath adjusts to a new metronome: coil, incense, ping, belly of the harbor, hush, rope, creak, heart. My job is to keep the edges kind, no sudden noises, no alarms, only the gently persuasive weight of being horizontal in a room that knows how voyages begin. Asterisk. You catch one last practical detail before sleep takes the wheel. A sailor ties a knot in a thin cord at the tightening of each watch. By dawn, the knot string becomes a small calendar he wears at his wrist, a reminder of who stood where in the night. He lays it next to your pillow, perhaps by accident, and you see the story of the evening measured in tidy loops. He reclaims it with a nod and a smile when he notices, as if embarrassed to have let you read his diary. You pretend you cannot read knots. It's the gentleman's agreement between strangers who shared a harbor and a breeze. Asterisk, the pellet drops ping, and something in you thinks, how elegant to be told it's time without being told what to do. The chart crinkles as someone folds it. The cat makes the sound that means I might move and I might not, and the harbor exhales a deep, patient breath that you answer without making a plan. Your cheek stays cool. Your thoughts become less hinged. The old man's star lives just below your ear, inked into porcelain. An old friend lowering a lamp for you on a long, polite stare. The next small ping from the incense spiral loosens into the tap of a wooden clapper, and when you open your eyes, you're passing through a narrow doorway into a Kaifeng courtyard. Some are folded neatly over everything. The walls hold the heat like folded quilts. A wutong tree breathes above you, leaves shaped like careful hands, and somewhere, a clay cistern glints with one round of moon. The house exhales, rice scent and red mats, a trace of sesame oil, paper screens patterning the floor with window lattice shadows that look like quiet chess. Asterisk. Your crate sits respectfully by the threshold, its straw wraps still tidy, your new pillow napping inside. You are a guest here, so you keep it wrapped for now. In the corner, a family arranges the night with practiced calm. A grandmother fans, wrist barely moving, the way a conductor might lead a lullaby with just an eyebrow. The mother hums a tune that winds between rafters and gently convinces the mosquitoes to take up other hobbies. A father checks the ties of a pale mosquito net that billows like a small cloud learning manners. He squints at a knot, unties it, reties it, and tries to pretend he didn't care that much. I will stop you from stepping in to help. Not every knot wants committee input. Asterisk on the raised platform bedwooden, with a bamboo mat, cool as geometry, a ceramic headrest, already waits. It's a little taller than the one you met earlier. A boxier shape with a faint peony in low relief and a discreet vent at the back. The glaze holds a cool glow in the lamplight, a calm the color of early morning. The mother lifts the net and settles a sleeping child, so that the curve of neck finds the pillow's arch as easily as water finds a shore. The head rests. The night approves. Your breath mirrors the quiet rearrangement. Asterisk A. Widely accepted fact shares the courtyard politely. Kaifeng Bianjing in local mouths is the bustling capital of the northern Song. A city of regulated night markets and neighborhood watches with clappers, of workshops and academies, and more bookshops than you could visit, even with a spare year, tucked in your sleeve. After dusk, patrols pass with those wooden time marks tokened, the sound moves along the lanes like a measured yawn. You hear one now, 3 houses over, then faint again, an audible curfew that prefers suggestion to scolding. Asterisk, the father lowers a ceramic ladle into the water jar, pours a palmful over the threshold to settle dust, and then dots the courtyard's brick with a few more drops, tiny oases that coax the air to behave. A lesser-known lovely habit lives on the low table, an incense clock traced on a bronze plate, a curving trail of powdered scent formed into a thin path. A single ember eats along the track so slowly that an hour forgets its name. When the fire reaches a grain of sand or a tiny metal bead placed at a marked bend, it gives a soft tick that never startles. The house keeps time the way a mother keeps quiet on purpose. Asterisk, near the bed, the ceramic pillow reveals a small trick. The father slides a side panel almost invisible under the glaze lining. You see a hidden compartment the size of a folded handkerchief. He tucks in hairpins and a sprig of mint, then slides the panel back with a click so gentle you could mistake it for contentment. Some pillows moonlight as tiny chests, the way benches in good foyers hide shoes. You store this vaguely magical practicality alongside saggar stacks and straw packing in your favorite cabinet labeled Objects with Secret Lives. Asterisk on a shelf behind the bed. A little gourd hangs by red thread. Inside, a cricket sings with the confidence of someone hired expressly for lullabies. The sound is clean, steady, and gentle enough to make your sternum lighter. You didn't know your bones tolerated insects as musicians, and yet here you are, mildly enchanted. The household cat does a perimeter check, pauses to assess you for crumb potential, and decides you are decorative rather than edible. That's a promotion. Later it will take the high post on the wall and nap in the exact place with the best breeze. Cats keep detailed maps of wind in every century. Asterisk, a small joke enters politely. The father offers you a palm fan, and your first 5 waves are enthusiastic enough to qualify as weather. He smiles and demonstrates the proper song, setting wrist soft arc, compact, breeze whispered, not negotiated. You adjust. Your shoulders thank you for the upgrade. Remember, the fan is not a duel. It's a truce between your skin and the night. Asterisk pinned to a rafter. An almanac sheet catches lamplight, the day's auspicious hours for haircuts and foot baths. Little Lunar notes the way modern calendars carry birthdays. A knot of garlic hangs nearby. Not for vampires, a concept mercifully underemployed here, but because kitchens are kitchens. In the corner, a bamboo stand holds a basin with a sliver of ice cradled in cloth. The air near it is a whisper cooler. Your host explains that ice houses dose the city through summer government-managed stores, hauled since winter, now trimmed and rationed to those who need it and those with means. Historians still wonder how far that chill reached. Did modest households like this regularly buy a sliver for sleep? Or was ice mostly a pleasure for official tables and deep pockets, with neighborhoods sharing a taste now and then? Records give hints, but not head counts. The question fans itself, and waits. Asterisk, the child stirs once, shows you a face that knows sleep is its actual job, and resettles on the ceramic curve without protest. The pillow's cool seems to drift up and over tiny fever dreams, pressing them flat. The mother smiles without looking, a move all mothers master. On the opposite wall, a paper window glows with a second-hand moon. Someone walking past outside becomes a shadow puppet for half a breath, and then moves along with the clapper's toque echoing softly. The house and street share their rhythm like neighbors trading fans. Asterisk, another fact to lean on. Mosquito nets, bamboo mats, and handheld fans are the summer kit across these neighborhoods. Ingenious tools that turn heat from a master into a negotiable partner. The mats lift your body onto air. The nets let breeze through while discouraging the winged percussion section, and the fans give dignity to a warm forehead. It's engineering in textiles and wrists. It works. Asterisk, the grandmother reaches toward the ceramic headrest and taps the glaze with her fingernail. A ritual instrument check, she tells you, in a voice the night enjoys, that she prefers porcelain for summer and a wood pillow for spring and fall a little warmer. Less quick to shake hands with a cool breeze. She confides that one grandson claimed the ceramic pillow whispered arithmetic problems to him at night. She told him it was teaching him even when he slept. He believed her, and honestly, you're halfway convinced. Your own pillow back in the crate clears its throat in a professional manner. Asterisk. Sepper's ghost references drift from the kitchen, a toasted edge of buckwheat, the memory of greens with ginger. The father pours a last cup of barley tea and tucks it inside the net on a low stool. You watch a droplet slide down the outside of the cup and imagine it as a tiny comet finding a sensible orbit. You are absolutely not auditioning to become the family lullaby, but your breathing becomes suspiciously rhythmic, and the cricket takes full advantage. Asterisk, a quirky detail joins the party. Under the platform bed, in a shallow drawer, lives a small brush and pan for catching unlucky moths, gently and releasing them. An act the child calls escorting guests home. The grandmother has never said no to that phrase. The cat pretends to disagree on ethical grounds, and then forgets to hold the objection. Asterisk. Historians still wonder about sleeping arrangements in crowded Kaifeng lanes. Did most families, on the hottest nights, drag mats 2 rooftops to borrow more sky and less wall, as some texts hint? Or did courtyards like this do the cooling well enough for most? The evidence is neighborly, but inconclusive. Some poems complain lovingly about rooftop dew. Others praise the Wutong shade down below. Tonight your household votes for the courtyard, and democracy